The markets are closed, but the business stories are just heating up. Hello, I'm Robert Tan. Catch up with us on Business Brief. Most of the Asian markets were higher earlier Tuesday. This comes after benchmarks fell on Wall Street, snapping a 9-day winning streak. Australia's ASX 200 is flat with an upward bias. Hong Kong's Hang Seng gained nearly 0.6%, while Indonesia's Jakarta Composite Index rose 0.9%. Taiwan's TAIEX added 0.3%. However, India's Nifty 50 slipped 0.3%. Japan's Nikkei 225 and South Korea's Kospi were both closed. In the currency markets, the US dollar is flat with an upward bias against the Japanese yen. The greenback held steady versus the Hong Kong dollar. The Australian dollar slipped 0.1%, while the US dollar rose 0.3% against the Singapore dollar. It also gained 0.2% versus the South Korean won. Meanwhile, the Thai baht strengthened with the US dollar falling 0.3%. Gold prices climbed more than 1%. Oil markets were mostly higher, with West Texas Intermediate crude and Brent crude gaining nearly 2%. However, Dubai crude bucked the trend, falling almost 2%. In the crypto space, Bitcoin is flat with an upward bias, while Ethereum slipped 0.4%. U.S. President Donald Trump signs an executive order to fast-track domestic drug manufacturing, a move that could reshape global pharmaceutical supply chains and trade flows. The order directs U.S. agencies to reduce regulatory approval times for new pharmaceutical facilities as the White House steps up efforts to localize production of essential medicines and ingredients. Trump says details on drug pricing and new import tariffs on pharmaceutical products will be announced in the coming weeks, a signal that policy shifts may soon follow. The administration has earlier opened national security reviews on U.S. dependence on foreign suppliers for both medicines and semiconductors, underlining its broader push for strategic industrial independence.
It's a big deal. Could have been that we wouldn't have had the problem we had.
A lot of people say that, sir.
If we had this done earlier. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Many actions that you've taken so far in this administration, sir, are related to onshoring manufacturing and onshoring supply chains. One of the most important supply chain issues we currently face as a country is our pharmaceutical supply chain. This is an executive order intended to promote domestic manufacturing of pharmaceuticals.
The U.S. entertainment industry is alarmed by President Trump's plan to impose a 100% tariff on all movies produced outside of the U.S. Reuters reports studio executives who refuse to be identified are asking how it would be implemented, since big budget films are usually produced across several continents. The prospect of film levies has triggered more uncertainty into the entertainment business. Shares of Netflix and other major entertainment companies fell Monday as investors digested Trump's pronouncement. Trump bared his plan after a meeting at Mar-a-Lago with his Hollywood ambassador, actor Jon Voight, special advisor Stephen Paul, and media executive Scott Carroll. The U.S. Defense Department is undergoing a major shakeup with potential implications for global defense strategy and spending. U.S. Defense Secretary Hegseth has ordered a 20% reduction in the number of four-star generals and admirals across the military, calling it a critical step to streamline leadership and remove redundant command structures. Hegseth says the U.S. needs a more agile and tech-driven defense force, and that more generals do not necessarily mean more success. The move comes amid growing global tensions and a shift toward modern warfare with greater emphasis on cyber defense, artificial intelligence, and space operations. Defense contractors and allies around the world are watching closely as this could affect procurement plans and future strategic alignment. Peru suspends mining operations in its northern Patas district for 30 days after a deadly attack linked to illegal mining activity left over a dozen gold mine workers dead. In response, the Peruvian government is deploying troops, imposing a 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. curfew and establishing a military base in the region, now under a state of emergency. The violence highlights the escalating risk in Latin America's informal mining sector, with potential implications for global precarious metal supply chains. While Peru is the world's third largest copper producer, most copper deposits are in the south. The north is rich in gold and silver, now facing heightened security concerns. Oil prices fell more than $1 per barrel on Monday as OPEC Plus plans to further speed up oil output. But this has sparked concerns about more supply coming into the market, clouded by an uncertain demand outlook. Brent crude futures dropped $1.34 to $59.95 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was at $56.87 per barrel, down by $1.42. Sources have said Saudi Arabia is pushing OPEC Plus to accelerate the unwinding of earlier output cuts to punish fellow members Iraq and Kazakhstan for poor compliance with their production quotas. Meanwhile, a U.S. lawmaker eyes new rules to track Nvidia AI chips after reports of smuggling to China. Illinois Congressman Bill Foster said the bill would require U.S. regulators to come up with rules in two key areas: tracking chips to ensure they are where they are authorized to be under export control licenses, and preventing those chips from booting up if they are not properly licensed under export controls. Foster, who used to be a particle physicist, revealed credible reports of large-scale chip smuggling into China. The chips are vital for advanced AI, from chatbots to potential weapon systems. Bipartisan support is building as lawmakers warn of real-time security threats. If the bill becomes a law, the Commerce Department has 6 months to act on the measure. OpenAI backs out of its restructuring plan to become a full-fledged for-profit organization. Its nonprofit parent will retain control, but the company will push ahead with plans to change the structure of its for-profit arm so it can raise more capital and keep pace in the AI race. The announcement follows a barrage of criticisms and legal challenges, including a lawsuit filed by rival and co-founder Elon Musk. The tech billionaire has accused OpenAI of straying from its founding mission to develop artificial intelligence for the benefit of humanity. And we're taking a short break. The biggest business stories from around the country are up next. You're watching Business Brief. Welcome back to Business Brief. Some good news. Inflation drops further, giving consumers some breathing room. More on that from Sujin Kim, reporting from Quezon City. Go ahead, Sujin.
Robert, headline inflation in the Philippines fell to 1.4% in April, a steep drop from March's 1.8%, marking the lowest level since the pre-pandemic period of November 2019 when it hit 1.2%. According to the Philippine Statistics Authority, rice prices declined by 10.9% year-on-year, one of the biggest contributors to the downtrend. In April, the average price of rice was at 44 to 61 pesos. Meanwhile, the decline in meat prices, particularly pork, also aided the overall slowdown. Kasim and Yempo now range between 320 to 390 pesos per kilo. Moderation in transport fares, fish, corn, and select vegetables further contributed to the easing inflation. However, gains were partly offset by faster price increases in housing, utilities, and gas. Milk, eggs, and other dairy products also recorded faster inflation. Egg prices surged with an 8.2% year-on-year. The central bank said the April figure falls within their forecast range amid easing global commodity prices. Meanwhile, baseline inflation forecasts have also been revised downward. The Department of Economy, Planning and Development, or DepDev, also welcomed the continued decline, citing it as a sign that the government reforms and policy interventions are taking effect. And those are latest updates from Quezon City. Back to you, Robert.
And thank you for that report, Sujin Kim. Meanwhile, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or BSP, is expected to cut the interest rate by 25 basis points in June. Christina Ulang, head of research at First Metro Investment Corporation, tells Bilyonaryo News Channel that this is after the inflation rate decelerated to 1.4% in April from 1.8% print in March and 3.8% recorded in the same month of 2024.
Well, this is a nice beat. Very, very nice beat. Positive surprise and a big catalyst for our PCA, which is we have seen it rise recently.
However, Ulang said the Philippine economy may once again miss the government's growth target for 2025 due to the trade war between China and the U.S. She forecasts that the gross domestic product will expand to 5.8% in 2025, lower than the Marcos administration target of 6 to 8% for the year.
Full year, we should be close to 6%. Our initial target was forecast was like 6%. But this tariff war, this trade war is actually already a trade war. Is reducing business confidence globally. Of course, the foreign direct investments could be at risk, and then taxes and growth targets may not be met. And therefore, we have revised our GDP target, GDP forecast to a little lower than 6%, 5.8% for the entire year.
The Department of Economy, Planning and Development, or DepDev, commits to guard against price spikes despite the record 1.4% inflation slowdown in April. DepDev credits the 10th consecutive month-on-month decline on falling food prices, especially rice. Undersecretary Rosemary Edilion said they have signed a memorandum of understanding with Philpost, granting its offices to host Kadiwa stores and make it more accessible to the public. The new mandate of DepDev, which is formerly called NEDA, is to drive inclusive growth and preserve Filipinos' buying power through future-ready policies. The Philippine economy expected to miss the government's first quarter growth target for 2025. Moody's Analytics, in its latest outlook for Asia Pacific, forecasts Philippine GDP to expand by 5.5% from January to March, below the Marcos administration's 6 to 8% target range. Still, this would be an improvement from the revised 5.3% growth in quarter 4 of 2024, but slower than the 5.8% recorded in the same period last year. For the full year 2025, Moody's sees the economy growing 5.9%, supported by strong domestic demand, particularly private consumption. The government unveils a bold decade-long master plan designed to do more than just create jobs. It aims to transform the Philippine labor landscape for the next generation. The Trabajo para sa Bayan plan outlines a comprehensive strategy to tackle structural unemployment, elevate workforce competitiveness, and align talent with emerging industries. The details from Susan Kim.
Amid the intensifying pressures of a rapidly evolving labor market, the government has officially launched the country's first 10-year national employment master plan, the Trabajo para sa Bayan Plan 2025 to 2034.
This plan also exemplifies the national government's unwavering resolve in ensuring that every Filipino has access to quality, productive, full, and sustainable employment.
The plan is spearheaded by the newly formed Department of Economy, Planning and Development, or DepDev, formerly known as NEDA. According to DepDev Secretary Arsenio Balisacan, transforming the labor market can no longer be delayed.
Changes in the Philippine labor market, driven by automation, digitalization, and emerging technologies, pose new challenges to the country's employment landscape. These evolving trends underscore the urgent need for adaptive policies that foster economic growth and offer essential support to Filipino workers.
The plan seeks to address urgent issues such as skills mismatch, underemployment, and informal work. To confront these challenges, the plan outlines key strategies including expanding access to capital and scaling up skills training programs. These will be focused on the following priority sectors.
It's really the human capital development that also improves the productivity of the other factors of production. It's also human capital that produces the technology, so on. And so central to all these to this economic development and even human capital development is really jobs.
The plan also puts special focus on improving the working environment for Gen Z.
And by 2035, the projection is that majority will now be coming from Gen Z and Gen Alpha. And we really need to enhance or revise actually many of our work regulations in order to suit their preferences.
Under the Trabajo para sa Bayan plan, the government also aims to reduce the number of employed poor or workers who have jobs but remain in poverty. According to DepDev, this will be done through mechanisms such as social protection and in-work benefits. Sujin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
President Bongbong Marcos orders sweeping changes in the country's transport system following recent deadly vehicular accidents that have raised alarm over safety standards. In a video message posted on his official Facebook page, the president extended his sympathy to the families of victims involved in the recent tragedies at the Subic-Tarlac Expressway Toll Plaza and the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. Marcos said he has ordered Transportation Secretary Vince Dizon to hold accountable all parties found negligent and to review safety protocols across public and private transport operations. He also tasked the Department of Labor to crack down on unsafe and exploitative practices in the transport sector, a move seen to improve working conditions for drivers and prevent further incidents.
We are taking the following actions. Review of driver licensing to ensure that only fit, capable, and responsible individuals, whether driving public or private vehicles, are allowed on our roads. A nationwide audit of bus operators with clear sanctions for those who fail to comply with safety and maintenance standards. A directive to the Department of Labor to crack down on unsafe and exploitative practices in the transport sector, because driver fatigue, long hours, and pressure to meet quotas should never put lives at risk. We owe it to the victims and their families to act, not only with sympathy, but with resolve. These lives will not be lost in vain.
We're taking a short break. Business Brief will be right back. The Department of Energy issues a directive to clear campaign materials from power infrastructure, a move aimed at securing electricity supply ahead of 2025 midterm elections. The order covers the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines, electric cooperatives, and private distribution utilities, instructing them to immediately remove unauthorized posters and structures attached to power lines and electrical facilities. This follows reports from the Commission on Elections flagging illegal campaign materials placed on power poles and wires, triggering concerns over public safety and grid stability. With businesses and election operations relying on uninterrupted power, the DOE's warning underscores a larger risk that physical obstructions on key infrastructure could disrupt not just political processes, but economic activity as well. Administration-aligned candidates are set to dominate the Senate ahead of midterm elections, widely seen as a referendum on the Marcos government's economic agenda. Pulse Asia Senate Survey, the latest survey conducted from April 20 to 24, shows Senator Bong Go of PDP Laban leading the pack. Other strong contenders include Erwin Tulfo, Tito Soto, Bong Revilla, and Ping Lacson, all part of the administration-backed Alianza coalition. Also in the winning circle, Bato de la Rosa, Willie Revillame, Manny Pacquiao, and Bam Aquino. Senator Amy Marcos and Philip Salvador are just outside the top 12. A pro-administration Senate could ease the passage of priority measures, including tax reforms, charter change, and infrastructure spending, with implications for business, markets, and investor confidence. Philippine shares rebound in the second trading day of the week after the inflation rate falls to 1.4% in April. The PSE index ended higher by 0.9% to close at 64.18, finishing the day as the fifth best performer in Asia. Among sectoral indices, only financials ended in the red, with services rising the most at nearly 4%. Advancers narrowly outpaced decliners, 97 to 95. Total value turnover reached 6.2 billion pesos. More than a half of the most active stocks ended in the green, with Bloomberry Resorts rising the most at nearly 10%. BPI, meanwhile, fell the most at 0.7%. Meanwhile, at the foreign exchange market, the peso is currently trading at 55.78 against the greenback, weakening from previous close of 55.77. And that's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Robert Tan. Join us again tomorrow as we bring you the stories that help you plan your next big, bold moves in business. Only here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. See you then.